Greetings. R. Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 187, and this is Tuesday. Lots of news available today for me to discuss. I can only do one, but it ranges from a Supreme Court decision which allowed President Trump to do what he was elected to do. It goes all the way up to what I consider the far right's anger that some of their pet peeves and opinions have been upended by the Department of Justice, and they're getting all upset about it. But the facts so far, from what I've seen, line up with the Department of Justice. You have to come to a point where you have to look at the facts and not just your opinions. I'm an outsider looking in, so these people may have news and facts that I don't have, but I have to make my judgments based on what I see and hear. I've decided to go with news on the Ukraine, one of our favorite subjects around here. There was an article recently published in which the former NATO commander expressed his views about the idea of sending Ukraine offensive weapons. A deal has been reached, the United States and NATO, and it's an interesting deal. And that's what we're going to look at real quick here. Retired Admiral James Stavridis, or Stavridis, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, said on Monday that he was hoping the deal would move beyond strictly defensive weapons, such as the Patriot missiles, which are the air defense systems that the Ukrainians desperately need. What I would like to see is a provision for the United States to send more Harpoon missiles to go after the Black Sea Fleet, more HIMARS, surface-to-surface weapons that can reach deep behind the Russian lines, more offensive cyber capability, and maybe some more F-16 aircraft, all of which are very capable offensively. We've seen, I'm throwing in an opinion here. We have seen how the Ukrainians, just like the Israelites, they can take weapons donated by the United States or other countries and upgrade them. They can do things that are particular to their particular advantage. And that's something that has been impressive and has played a role in this war. Going back to what this man was saying, I think that is what could move Putin to the negotiating table, which is what we want on our side. The truth of the matter is that that's the goal. That's everybody's goal, is to get to the negotiating table. That's just the start, folks. Now, I'm giving you my opinion here a little bit in advance. Getting them to the negotiating table is just the beginning. Then you have to negotiate. But getting back to the article, later, President Trump announced a deal that could well lead to that conclusion. The deal will allow NATO members to provide offensive weapons to Ukraine that could reach deep within Russia. It all appears as a coordinated response to Russian delaying tactics. Trump also threatened Putin with sanctions if there is no deal to end the war in Ukraine in 50 days, which Stavridis said earlier Monday he had been hoping to see. Now, here's my opinion. This deal, from what I'm gathering from it, and I could be wrong on this, just the way I've been reading it, it sounds like European countries will buy, well, they have their own stockpiles to begin with, but then they will buy weapons from the United States to bring into their stockpile, which they can then release to the Ukrainians. So it's not going directly from the United States to Ukraine. It's going through the the European countries. That's my understanding of it. Now, like I said, I could be totally wrong about that. Trying to read behind the lines here, but that is what it appears to me to be. So this whole thing I consider to be good news. In some circles here in the United States, Ukraine has been treated in some as the aggressors. A lot of accusations made against them, most of which have been proven false. And most of them, if they would look at it, when you're pointing a finger at Ukraine, they can point three fingers coming back at the United States. We're just as guilty of doing the things that they're accused of doing. And some of these people who are making these accusations are very popular, very well known, but they're uh, sometimes their facts are a little bit hazy. Let's put it that way. One of the things that I have heard from others who follow that line of thinking is that Ukraine has been suppressing the Christian religion. Well, that's not true. There is a church there, a very large church, that is part of the Russian Christian church and is under the control of the Russian government. And there's a lot of indication there that they kind of work for them. But they're still allowed to, they have not been banned, they have not been kicked out. The Christian movement there, from what I've seen, sounds like to me they're having some kind of a revival there. There are other religions that are also there. The Jewish religion is very strong in Ukraine. If I remember my facts right, I think the president of the Ukraine is himself. I have a Jewish background. So it's an accusation. They pick up a little bit of information over here, and either they ignore it's where it's coming from, or they simply don't bother. They don't investigate. The Ukraine was a country that was invaded, and it is true that at one time they belonged to the Soviet Union, and even before that, maybe even to Russia. But before that, they were independent. And so, and there have been times where they've been independent, times in which they've been under the control of other countries, but they've always had sort of an independent spirit. And it's kind of strange that we Americans who rebelled against a foreign country trying to rule us and tell us how we had to live and so on and so forth, that we now turn against another country which has similar situations. They have a similar leader, much like Trump. But the thing is that when you start, how do you say this? When you start pointing fingers at people, it's a good idea to investigate and to find out what is true and what isn't. I spent some of my time just trying to find. People have told me, well, they do this and they do that, and then I've investigated and have not found the evidence to be valid or strong enough to really support the accusations, or sometimes it's just not there. So I think that it's time that Russia got the blame it deserves. Russia invaded Ukraine and still breaks agreements to this very day. Now, it took a whole lot longer to arrive at this for our government to arrive at this conclusion than I thought it would, but that finally has. Trump is seeing him for what he is, for what Putin is, and is giving some very strong. Well, he limited it to 50 days that Putin had to come up with to get to the negotiating table. Now, folks, let's keep this in perspective. All this to get him to the negotiating table, they still have to negotiate. They still have to come up with some kind of an agreement. And I think Ukraine is correct in trying to protect its borders, its land. There is some land that might be in dispute that they might have to. There's a strong Russian component there, and it's been there for a while. So I don't know if that gives them room for negotiation or not. There's the Crimea, literally should belong to Ukraine, so you could have a trade-off here. Uh, it's not going to be a happy one, but there's probably going to have to be some kind of a trade-off. But first you got to get to the table. Then you have to negotiate, and then you have to actually uh, perform it, to do it, to enact it, and that might take years to accomplish. I don't know. Sometimes the government moves really slow. Sometimes it can move really fast. So we'll just see. I know Trump wants to bring peace there as soon as possible, and so that would be a motivation at the very least to get things done as quickly as possible. So we'll have to. I've said this before. We'll have to watch and wait, but it is good news, and Putin hopefully will finally see the light and move towards a negotiation. Should we trust him? No. He can't be trusted. He'll make promises that he won't keep. And so there's going to be some kind of a mechanism for them to make sure that he keeps whatever promises he makes or agrees to. So that is it for today as far as the Ukraine is concerned. As far as some of the other issues, the Department of Justice, this Epstein thing, the guy is dead, so they can't bring any more charges against him. And the investigation, the people who actually are being accused of a cover-up are actually people who went in the office when they got elected. They expected to find evidence that apparently they had not found. They fully expected to find it, and now they have to back off. I would rather they be honest and back off than just go forward knowing that eventually they can bring charges and so on and so forth, destroy careers and everything else, and then have the court step in and say, you don't have a case. You got to be careful in that. You got to be wise, and I think that the government is being very wise in what it's doing right now, and at the very least, we should watch and don't be so quick to judge. Just because your favorite opinion may not hold water. If you have some facts out there, then present them to the government. But if you don't have them, if it's all sauce, and what it looks like to me to be primarily people coming up with their opinions, or they're thinking, well, if this was the case, this was the case, this is the case, so forth, then this would be the case. And that's speculation. And we don't live, this government and this country is not based on speculation. We just, to quote a famous detective that you will all remember, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Well, that's it. If you don't know who that was, then you're not nearly as old as I am. But you have a great day. I hope, if by the way, if you have, I would like to have you come and follow me. I would like very much for you to subscribe to my channel, TR Independent Books. And when you do that, you encourage me to inform you and encourage you and to inspire you. You be the judge whether I do that or not. But that's my goal every time. And I hope I did it again today. And I hope, for one thing, too, it gave you something to think about, to discuss in a reasonable manner. And by the way, you can always leave comments. I check all the time for comments. And if there's any there that I think need to be addressed, I will address them either there or possibly right here in one of my podcasts. Well, that's it for today. You have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.